If you didn't see my video about the first XWF show, I'd highly suggest checking that out before checking this one out. And if you've already seen it, well then welcome back. We're now on episode 2 of 3, and what a journey it's already been. I know I mentioned it last time, but I'll go ahead and do it again. I really hate the format of these shows. Every show opens and closes with Knobs and Hart just talking about what we've already seen. And they pop up a few times in between as well. They don't really bring any insight into the product. They just pop up and go, oh hey, what about this? And how about that? That doesn't really add anything to the presentation. If anything, it actually takes away because they won't let it speak for itself. They just feel the need to constantly interject themselves into the ongoings. Just please play the footage that you shot and kindly piss off respectfully. Yes, I understand the irony in me saying that when that's kind of what I'm doing here myself, but I like to think that I'm adding a little bit more than they are. The worst part of these segments has to be the fact that they can't stop patting themselves on the back and putting themselves over, crediting themselves for things that would normally go unspoken of in any other company. Because their actual would-be product had so little going on, and so little going for it, that they need to call attention to every intricate detail with pride. You just find yourself wondering, should the statement, everyone showed up on time for work, really be something worth noting to a general audience? That would be like me saying, hey, you know, back in the day I used to run my own wrestling show, and yeah, maybe it was a total botch fest filled with little to no trained people, but, you know, everyone washed their hands. Everybody, we're talking about rinsing, drying, getting in between your fingers, like, everybody sanitized. My pro wrestling company should have been a lot bigger. Like, yeah, that's good, but who cares? That's not a selling point. The show starts off with a tag team bout that pits the team of Juventud Guerrera and Psychosis against Conan and Ray Gonzalez. Being a big WCW fan, I'm pretty familiar with 3 out of the 4 men in this match, but Ray Gonzalez is a total stranger to me, though from what I can see, he's fairly accomplished. These 4 men work well together, sharing a fast-paced style that never lets up, trading aerial assaults and quick counters all throughout. It's a solid outing. The only complaint I have is that by the end of it, it just feels far too short. It was fun while it lasted, but I really wish it would have lasted a little bit longer. Like just when they suckered you into the match, it's over with little to no fanfare. After a fun but eventually disappointing opener, Ian Harrison cuts a promo in front of a green screen.
That's your face.
I was not expecting that voice to come out of that monster of a man. This man looks like a nightmare brought to life, but he speaks like a 56-year-old smoker with strep throat. He looks like a very distinct monster, but he sounds like a very generic pirate. Then we get a quick shot of Hogan, who urges fans to check out the hot CEO and Dawn Marie. First off, why bring Dawn into this? And if you're gonna bring Dawn into this, why do it that way? But secondly, I get that it's Sable, but she's made to be the company's CEO. Yet somehow, all anyone could talk about is how attractive she is. The commentary team actually beats Hogan to the punch in the first match.
Our new CEO. Oh man, the lovely Marina Merrill. Was gorgeous.
She is gorgeous. She looked wonderful last week.
I don't know, man. Can a boss call HR on their own employees? Is that possible? I mean, this seems like it's unprecedented, but someone needs to present this to somebody. I think what makes this even more strange is that Sable left the WWF at the time due to sexual harassment. And yet, here she is, being publicly sexually harassed in a completely different company. Like, I get that it's a show, but I think that this shows poor taste, given the real-life circumstances and scenario centering around this human being. I'm not saying that they shouldn't compliment her on her beauty, especially when for a lot of her original run, it was her only selling point. But she's playing a different part here. This isn't Sable we're talking about, it's Rena. I mean, she's the boss here, shouldn't she be treated as such? This would be like back in the day if every time we saw Mike Adamle on screen, Jerry Lawler just turned to Jim Ross and went, "Look at our Raw general manager. Don't you just want to kiss him?" Okay, maybe it's a little different than that, but not by much. But not really by much. Speaking of strange, the former Sable makes her way to the ring accompanied by a security team. A security team which consists of the Barbarian and the Shockmaster. Rena enters the ring where she's questioned by Mean Gene Okerlund on the actions of the company's commissioner, Roddy Piper. Roddy is then summoned to the ring Beetlejuice style, and the two start talking down the world-famous interviewer. A lot of innuendo is made throughout the promo until eventually it's broken up by Vampiro, who is wearing his finest pirate shirt a la Seinfeld. And that is now 2 times in a very short amount of time that I've mentioned pirates on a wrestling show that does not feature Paul Burchill. So that is 2 times too many. But in all seriousness, he looks really ridiculous. Though I must say, all things considered, I do enjoy this as a casual look for the character. It's absurd, but, you know, so is he. So, you know, it fits, even if the shirt doesn't. This is the most out-of-place, pointless promo I think I've ever seen. Vampiro interrupts Piper, who interrupted Rena and Mean Gene, just to thank them for an opportunity. Rena compares Vampiro's passion for pro wrestling to Josh's, but doesn't bother remembering his last name. The one Sable makes a match between Vampiro and the future commentator Josh, hold the last name, and the crowd goes mild. This whole promo was just to set up a match that doesn't even happen on this show. Also, Piper literally stares at Rena's chest the whole promo. I get that it's being played for comedic effect, but in effect, it's not all that comedic. Plus, this is a bit you do if someone was wearing something low cut that might be distracting to the eye. But here, Rena is completely covered up, like fully dressed, and Piper is still undressing her with his eyes. I don't know what this segment was supposed to get across, maybe the match it tried to set up, but that match didn't really need to be set up given that this is a wrestling show and matches just happen. There was no added story going into this, it's just this match is going to happen. Which, by the way, this match does not happen on this show. This promo was the roughest thing to watch on this show. Following this, Simon Diamond, Johnny Swinger, and Dawn Marie make their way down to commentary. But they're not there to join the booth. They show up to down-talk Jerry the King Lawler, upset over comments Lawler made about Dawn Marie in the last show. Simon Diamond insults Jerry's silent valet, and this is enough to get the King back in the ring. Suddenly, an impromptu match takes place that sees Maximum Force jump Jerry after the ring bell, only for the two to then trade off accidentally attacking each other until the ring bell rings again. The match itself is a short but not so sweet affair, one that sees the same exact spot get repeated for laughs that never come. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I think if it was funny, then this could be overlooked. But unfortunately it's not funny, and it's still stupid, so it's just not good. The King wins in a match that was as equally pointless as the promo that preceded it. And speaking of pointless, Hell makes his return alongside Jimmy Hart, who's decked out in XWF merch, to take on a guy named Knuckles. You take one look at this guy, and it's pretty obvious what this match is. It's another big man squash. The opponent gets no offense in, and while Hell looks a little bit better here than he did previously, he still doesn't look all that promising. You know, aside from his actual look. The match is over, but the winner is not. Hulk Hogan and Greg Valentine are backstage upset about not being included on the card, when the XWF commissioner, Roddy Piper, enters to tell Horace he's getting him a match. But he needs him to be tough, and to visualize this toughness, he starts hitting the hammer. I love this shtick here. Ever clever, Piper is taking physical shots at his longtime rival Greg Valentine, but talking him up and using him as a positive example as he does so. So it leaves the hammer in this strange state of confusion where he just takes the abuse because it comes with compliments. Only when he walks off does Greg realize the ruse and takes his anger out on the actual match card itself. I'm not even kidding when I say this has been the best thing on the show thus far. Next up, Johnny B. Bad returns to the ring from retirement to take on Norman Smiley. And I was pretty excited about this because I'm a big time fan of both men. And while it's always a pleasure seeing these two men in the ring, they don't actually do a whole lot in this ring. Again, it's another match that's fine, all things considered. Like, it's serviceable, but it's nothing to write home about. It's competent, but it's not complimentary of either man. Overall, it's competent, but it's not complimentary of either man. It's a sound match with next to nothing of note. Yet again, kind of a disappointment. Speaking of disappointments, our next match. It's a rematch from the first show that pits the Pity City guys, the Nasty Boys, against the Shane twins. Except the Nasty Boys no-show and are immediately replaced by the Road Warriors. Mind you, no announcement of this is made. They just played the Nasty Boys theme and put their names on the Tron. Then they cut it and start playing the Road Warriors Iron Man ripoff, and their face-painted foes make their entrance. Ah yes, what great storytelling. I love that they couldn't even announce that there's been a change made. But Knobbs and Jimmy Hart in present day feel the need to pop up to let people know when everyone was punching in for work. Yeah, priorities. Immediately after the bell rings, the Road Warriors rush the Shane twins and begin attacking them when they aren't looking, which is weird considering that they're being booked as baby faces and just raised the arms of these guys on the last show. It's almost like these shows were made to make no sense. Or dollars, for that matter. There's some impressive feats of strength, but overall it's not a very impressive match. I'll be honest, seeing the Shane twins work really makes me wonder how they didn't find further success in the WWE. I'm not saying that they were great, but I do see the potential in them being great. They were athletic, they moved well, and they do kind of feel like the type of team that would be around during the Road Warriors' heyday. This sucks to say, but the Legion of Doom match is the worst match of the night. It's an unfortunate botch fest, chock full of mess-ups and mistimed spots. At one point, it looks like one of the Shanes hit Animal with a flying nothing, and the man who sells nothing goes flying. Shortly after, Hawk's tagged in, and goes to take a turnbuckle bump, but instead accidentally launches himself to the outside in a pretty painful looking fashion. And then this happens. I don't even know what to call this. After a legitimately devastating doomsday device that looked like it probably did doom that Shane twin taking it, the Nasty Boys suddenly, but not subtly, sneak down to the ring. And I do use the word sneak very liberally here, as Knobbs crouches down and Sags just waddles to the ring. The two wind up getting beat down, and the match once again ends with the Shane twins and the Legion of Doom hugging it out in the ring. I think I'll pause the action to talk about all the wonderful promos we got throughout. There's a lot of green screen in-your-face promos. We get one from AJ Styles, who may have known what he was doing in the ring at the time, but on the mic not so much. There's one from Sonny Ono, WCW's greatest managerial export, in which he puts over his new client Vapor. Now Vapor looked familiar to me, and when I looked him up, I found out that that's because he was one of Tajiri's henchmen, Sakota. Jimmy Snuka and his son Junior, or as he calls him Jimmy Snuka 2, cut your typical in-your-face promo. And it's hard to even pay attention to that, as all I can see is the blatant RVD ripoff that Sim Snuka is. I get that he was early in his career at the time and he was probably trying to find himself, but he's dressed up like he was looking for someone else. The promo ends bizarrely with Snuka barking like Rick Steiner, while his son makes faces that you'd only see in a Daddy Magic promo. Credit to the show for having some segments that take place off of a green screen, like when Jasmine St. Clair meets the Public Enemy, and after an awkward exchange becomes their manager. At least that's what I think happens. It's almost completely inaudible, but from what I can tell, that is pretty much the scenario here. Also, they're no longer the Public Enemy. Probably because Flava Flav was coming for that paycheck. These guys will now be known as the South Philly Posse. Well, that was a lot of fun. Now for the main event. Kurt Hennig, managed by the brilliant Bobby Heenan, takes on Judy Bagwell's baby boy, Buff the Stuff Bagwell. And if I was a kid, I'd be freaking out right now, because these were two of my favorite wrestlers during that era. This match is a breath of fresh air, especially after the last few segments. It's not a 5-star classic by any means, but it is a proper showcase of both Mr. Perfect and Buff Bagwell. Though once again, like the first match, I wish it was offered a little bit more time. It feels like when the men started to get some sort of rhythm in the ring, it was already time for the finish. It was good, but it could have been a lot better given the talent associated with the match. The biggest complaint I have about any of this, though, is who decided to book Buff Bagwell as a babyface. He's a muscled up narcissist that acts like an annoying over-the-top brat. Sure, he can be charismatic and goofy, and fans could potentially learn to like him, but that's the problem, they need to learn to like him. You can't just present this character as a good guy right out of the gate, because his whole persona radiates heel. I think one of my favorite parts watching these shows is seeing a return to form for Curt Hennig. While he's not going by that old moniker, he feels more like Mr. Perfect here than he did during his time in WCW. As a matter of fact, he feels more like Mr. Perfect here than he did when he returned to the WWF as Mr. Perfect a few months later. Of course, that's helped by booking that's properly trying to showcase his skills as a performer and as an entertainer, and by Bobby Heenan in his corner at ringside. The match ends with Heenan assisting Curt to get the win. But then Vampiro rushes to the ring and tries to persuade the ref to restart the match? Why? Why does he care? I can understand making Vampiro a good guy, but does he need to be this much of a babyface? The way these shows portray him is just so strange. Even Super Cena would look at him and go, yeah, alright man, you might be doing a little bit too much. Then of course this episode ends devolving into absolute anarchy, as Hennig attacks Vampiro, Buff attacks Hennig, Ian Harrison comes out and attacks Buff for some reason, Roddy Piper comes out and attacks Hennig, then chases off the Brain, only for CEO Rena to come out with her security team to scold the commissioner. What is going on here? And that's the end of the second episode of the XWF. This company really confuses me. There's always so much and so little going on all at once in the XWF. It's like the perfect oxymoron, filled with actual morons in management. I'm sorry, but the booking here is just bad. And not even so bad it's good or so bad it's fun, just not good. I think ultimately it's a lot more fun recapping this than it is rewatching it. There was so much potential here and all of it was just wasted. And from what I can see, so was Brian Knobbs. That being said, if you enjoyed this episode and would like to see me cover the next and final XWF episode, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
the letter X.
I am vengeance. I am the night. And that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.